Hi everyone, very nice to catch up with you again today and talk about acne. I'm quite passionate about resolving skin issues because it really affects our self-esteem, which then can have a knock-on effect with other aspects of our health and life. And there is a correlation between healthy immune system and acne. So some of the nutrients required for acne or reducing acne and having healthy skin also play an important role for immunity, and that's very important in times of pandemic as well. So let's get stuck into it. Please let me know if you're listening live in the comments or if you're listening to the recording. My name is Christine Barnes. I'm a naturopath and natural medicine expert. My website is thebodyguard.com.au, and you can follow me on both my public figure Facebook page or Instagram. So look forward to chatting with you further on all the social media platforms as well. So what is acne? So acne can strike us at all sorts of different times in our life. So we commonly think about acne in the teenage years, which is more commonly associated with acne vulgaris. So that's usually the diagnosis for teenage style acne, and I'm going to talk about that. It's very common. But acne is essentially hair follicles under the skin getting clogged. Now, it can be a localized environment scenario, so do check your skin creams and moisturizers and any products that you're using topically, and make sure that they don't cause comedones. Or sometimes you'll see in their marketing of products it's non-comedogenic. Very big word, difficult for me to get my tongue around at this time in the morning. Now, I believe Megan from our lovely gut health community here has run some detox programs on environmental products you use at home and some fermented food programs. So look at those. I definitely recommend you look at fermented foods because that can be helpful for acne. But let's get back to what it is. So there can be clogging, and then we've got to look at why is that clogging. So sometimes it's sebaceous glands that are attached to the hair follicles and that soft fur that we've got all over our skin. And then we've got to look at why that's happening. Also, it can be a mix of dead cells that should be sloughing off and they're not for various reasons, that can be mixing with those sebaceous gland aspects and then clogging. And of course, then we've got the microbiome that's covering our whole body that might be out of balance, so that can play a role as well. So today I'm just going to cover general aspects of acne. Obviously, there's a wide variety of types of acne depending on where you're at in your life cycle, so we want to look at that individually, but also the nutritional drivers, the microbiome drivers, we want to look at those individually as well. So today I'm going to talk about broad strokes so you can sort of get a gist of the concepts that we're talking about. Great majority of acne occurs on the face, but you can get it in other parts of the body, back, chest, shoulders. So when we're looking at things like acne vulgaris, which I mentioned is the common one that we experience during our teenage years, often that's driven from a surge in androgens. So we want to check in on those hormones if they're out of balance or out of balance for too long. We'd expect some surging when the hormones are just getting revved up. So, small, mild acne, not associated with stress or diet. We could have a little bit of low level. We'd expect that to resolve. But if it's not resolving, we've got to dig deeper and look at what other things are contributing. Now, high GI foods can contribute in a big way, especially in our teenage years, but at other times in our life as well. So glycemic index foods, and I'm going to talk more about diet as well. Now, sun can aggravate some acnes. So heat can also aggravate any sort of extremes in cold or heat temperatures. So they can aggravate extremes in weather, hot and cold baths, alcohol, spicy foods. So depending on the type of acne, we want to reduce the aggravators and we want to increase those aspects that actually help support healthy skin, healthy hormones, and reduce the cytokine storm associated with acne and bad skin. So one of the first steps, if you suddenly have acne or you've done some common things to help resolve your acne and it's not resolving, you want to make sure that it is acne and go through a differential diagnosis process with your practitioner and rule out things like folliculitis, rosacea, and there's other dermatological aspects that can look like acne, but it can mean that you don't actually have traditional straight acne. It might be some other thing. Now, you can also have a mixed bag, so make sure that you're treating the right thing. So that's very important to get the appropriate diagnosis. And then, of course, that means that what we're also doing is we're targeting our treatment, because even though there may be commonalities that I'm going to talk about today, you may actually find that there are some aspects of treatment that need adjusting or tweaking depending on your diagnosis. So make sure we're treating the right thing. That's always the important thing. Let's talk about tests. So there's some testing that I generally, if I have a case in my clinic that has, a strong case for acne, I'll be looking for a full hormone panel. Number one, we want to find out what the hormones are doing. Now, this can be in the case of adult onset acne or teenage acne. I want to find out where the hormones are, because high levels of androgens, testosterone in particular, too high, we want healthy levels. But if it's too high, that can aggravate overproduction of the sebaceous glands and then contribute to acne. So getting that right is really important. Now, not just for acne, it's important to have healthy hormones for a wide range of reasons: how we function, our brain health, energy, our digestion. Hormones play a huge role in all aspects of health. So how do we test that? Well, we can do that with a blood test. So if you're going to your GP, they need to be able to justify doing a full hormone test to be able to claim it against Medicare in Australia, depending on what country you're in. You can do that. Your naturopath can refer you for blood testing for a full hormone panel. Also, I like to do a hair tissue mineral test. Now, this is testing heavy metals and your nutritional aspects as well. So that can be really helpful, because some of the ratios in those minerals can tell us, deficiencies, toxicities, can tell us if you're detoxing well. And I'm going to talk about how important healthy detoxification is as well as far as managing acne. The microbiome, very important. Now, we have several microbiomes, but we generally test the gut microbiome. So that's tested with a poo sample. And again, your naturopath can refer you for that. And other tests that I like to have done, both blood tests and tissue, is zinc, copper, selenium. These are just to name a few, that are targeted for acne. Now, acne is multifactorial in terms of its origins. So that's why I'm talking about so many different aspects. So don't worry if you're getting a little bit confused and you're sort of going, oh, is it hormones? No, my hormones are balanced. There may be other things going on. It can be 10% of one, 20% of another. It may be multifactorial, maybe multiple things going on. It may be primarily one thing. So like a lot of multifactorial health issues, we want to establish what percentage, what's going on, what's playing a role here, and actually treat all of those things. And often I see patients that present and they go, but I have been doing some of these things. And we discover through testing there's this aspect that's out of balance. And when we address that and the other things, we then get better results. So don't give up hope if you're doing some of the things I'm recommending today and it's not going well. It may be some aspect that we need to address. So let's look at androgens and how they can affect things. Now, hormones happen and get out of balance potentially at different times of our life cycle. Often we think about it in the teenage years, but for instance, menopause, we can experience hormones peaking and troughing and just generally out of balance, and we can suddenly get an adult onset of of acne. So, and this is about sebum release. So too much sebum, as I mentioned earlier, can be a problem. So, once we actually establish what the underlying foundation or your status is on your hormones, we then can start working on rebalancing those hormones. So really important. It's probably one of the primary reasons for acne being driven. So let's look at how we can actually support hormone function. I'll be talking about that in a minute. Diet, targeted nutrition, and supplementation as well. So we can have genetic risk factors. Now, there's not actually a gene for acne, but if we've got an issue with other family members, if parents and children both find this a common experience, it may be that we've got genes that have problems or cause problems with managing hormones and detoxification. So we do have genes associated with that. We also have genes that can mean that we've got problems with converting beta-carotene into vitamin A. And vitamin A, as you probably already know from my previous webcasts, that it plays a big role in immunity and many other aspects. So vitamin A primarily is sourced from organ meats, but comes in many forms in our diet. Now, it's quite frequently confused with beta-carotene. So beta-carotene we get from vegetables. We've got to be able to convert that into vitamin A. So some people just have a genetic predisposition to not being able to do that efficiently or effectively as the next person. So again, that means we need to make sure we've got more adequate sources or healthy, easy sources of vitamin A, and we're able to break that down, absorb it, then say the next person. Detoxification. I'm going to go into that a little bit further in the liver and some of our detoxification organs that are commonly out of balance and involved frequently in acne cases. Stress and the overproduction of cortisol. So this is when our experience of stress, we don't have stress resilience, or our environment is too stressful than what we can cope with or what anybody can cope with. And let's face it, in times of COVID, it's very stressful with various levels of lockdown and how that can create stress in the home even. We're all exposed to stress, even me. So, what we need to look at is, are you experiencing stress? To what degree? What's driving it? Is that something we can adjust? Is it an internal imbalance, such as heavy metals? Mercury causes a lot of stress. Copper to zinc ratio can cause stress, and lack of stress resilience and anxiety causes stress and takes us into a oxidative stress state. Lots and lots of reasons for that. Lack of adequate nutrition can cause our body internal stress. Lack of adequate evacuation can cause our body stress. Lots of different things there. But stress plays a role in acne, and a lot of people will be buying all sorts of products and taking all sorts of supplements and not addressing stress. So definitely that's something that you want to look at if you're treating your acne and you feel you're doing everything right and there may be a stress component. Now, it can be about stress internally as well, that we have had some trauma earlier in our life, and we may look and present quite relaxed, but we may be still experiencing stress and some of that trauma internally. So all things to explore with your natural medicine practitioner. Now, let's talk about some dietary interventions. I always like to start with diet. It's always a great foundation to start with and to continue with. Now, first step in diet is ingesting. Of course, we've got to make sure that we can absorb and break down the foods, but let's just talk about ingesting the right food. So bitter vegetables actually help our detoxification pathways, and I'm going to go into some of those organs later in this chat about detoxification pathways. But bitter vegetables, so rocket is a common one that people see, but think about expanding out into radishes, mustard greens, watercress, some of those, more unusual, less common types of bitter vegetables. Bitter melon, very good for glycemic index, so and managing glycemic control. Doesn't taste great, so you want to mix it into other things. Fatty fish, now this is commonly famous for mood food, and fatty fish is a great source of vitamin A, also a great source of omega-3. Now, omega-3 helps reduce the inflammatory cytokines associated with acne. So that's that inflammation. You get the spot, then you get the redness around it. It's the body going into creating inflammatory cytokines. So this can come from being in a inflammatory cytokine storm, so just being pro creation of inflammatory cytokines, so that might need some herbal medicine adjustment. But also it can be from inadequate absorption or ingestion of omega-3 fatty acids. Organ meats, great source of vitamin A, very good for immunity. Vitamin A is excellent for skin, immunity, and hormone production, but also a good source of zinc and omega-3. So now most of us in the West are not familiar with including organ meats in our diet, and I don't like a lot of them either, but they can be included in your diet. Think about adding them to soups and stews, so you're not aware of the taste, but get them in. I do like pate though, and I'm not talking about pate with all the sugars and alcohol in it, but a nice liver pate I use as my fast food and snacks. So think about that and how you could include that in some of your diet. Also, we want to be able to eat calmly to be able to absorb those nutrients. So make sure your environment is calm, that you're not rushed. And we all have days where we're working through our lunch hour, even I do occasionally, but we want to make that more the exception than the rule. So you want to make sure that you're chewing adequately, you're calm, it's a pleasant environment, and your stomach acid then will be nice and strong. So now, what are some of the ingredients that actually aggravate acne? So refined carbohydrates, processed and refined sugars, but all commercial processed food usually has some aspect in it that will be a problem for your skin. So, and other things, by the way. So, if you're eating out a lot, if you're eating takeaway foods, you may want to look at mixing that up a little bit more and having some more home-cooked foods, or getting creative about how you can make this diet work for you if you are experiencing acne. Now, this comes down to the glycemic control. So one of the aspects that are fairly easy to manage in relation to the association with glycemic control and acne is having adequate fiber. Now, this also has a knock-on effect with detoxification and healthy bowel movements. So if we're not having enough healthy fiber, it won't support healthy bowel movements, but also healthy fiber supports healthy glycemic index. So we're not going to have those peaks of inflammation and troughs of energy, which all plays into the spiraling of our inflammatory cytokines and resulting in acne and other things as well, inflammatory responses which can happen in joints and sore muscles and, sleep issues, all sorts of things. So there's lots of things, and I'd love to have the opportunity to chat more with you about glycemic control in the future. So maybe we'll pick that as a topic if that's important, just to chat about in itself. So what can we do? We've talked about some testing. We've talked about diet a little bit, and I'm going to go into that into a little bit of depth further. But one of the first things we can do is just make sure that we're adequately hydrated and consuming enough fiber and having a healthy bowel movement. Yeah, so this is all part of detoxification. Not a detoxification program, not special foods. It's about detoxification. I'll talk about bowel movements in a moment. Immunity. So having a healthy immune system helps to manage the bacteria that sits on our skin and in our gut. So really important. And also we don't want the immune system to be over-responding and contributing to inflammation. So we want to make sure that immune system is healthy, in a healthy state. So that's best to be assessed by your naturopath. We can look at some blood tests and see what the immune system is doing, but also look at those foundational nutrients. Now I'm going to talk at length ad infinitum about zinc and selenium. All of these same nutrients that help with acne also help with the immune system. Yeah, so you can see that there's this common thread in here. Yeah. There is a particular bacteria called Propion bacterium. It's actually called Propion bacterium acnes. So you can see that the actual name of the bacteria relates specifically to feeding into that acne cycle. Now we do find that this is quite dominant in skin bacteria when there's inflammatory responses on the skin, and it's a natural changer of healthy sebum into sebum that's the healthy natural skin oils that we produce that then turns it into bacteria that leads into acne. Now it's commonly a little bit more elevated than it should in teenagers, 11 to 15 years old in particular, and is a contributor to when those hormones kick in and we start overproducing possibly too much androgens. Then we're able to detox. So you can see that the hormones we're going to overproduce during that period, but we've got to be able to detox the excess appropriately. This plays a role during menopause as well. So that's why detoxing and making sure those bowel movements are healthy is just as important as skincare, and they have this inverse relationship. So there's a couple of reasons why teenagers generally have more of this bacteria than adults, and part of it is we all eat a little bit too much junk food than we should when we're teenagers, and of course we're moving from that childhood, running around, getting sweaty, etc. Quite often our hygiene isn't quite up to speed with the changes as well. So, but generally speaking, we do see it a little bit more elevated than the norm anyway. But obviously, if we're not detoxing appropriately, we can have issues there. So you can hear some common threads that I'm talking about. Gut health, yeah. Now we're all sitting in the gut healing community support and chat group. That's where this video is. So gut health is really important, and it plays a role in itself in being able to detox appropriately. So don't forget those fermented foods. Now, let's talk about fermented foods in relation to skin, and possibly a little action that we can use fermented foods creatively. So common fermented food is sauerkraut, but really choose the fermented food that works for you. It's generally very high in vitamin C and helpful bacteria for skin. So yes, we want to ingest it, but you could also use the liquid from, for instance, sauerkraut on your skin. So ways of doing that is just decanting some of the liquid and putting it on, say, a cotton pad and just dabbing it on the skin as you would like toner. Or you could get a piece of muslin cloth and soak it in there and cover the face in that muslin cloth. Now try it on a small part of your skin first. You may have a sensitivity, so just check that you're not hypersensitive to it and that it doesn't cause any discomfort and pain. But if there's no discomfort, pain, extra itchiness, anything like that, consider using that like a face mask, and that can be good. But also consume sources of fermented foods. Healthy gut means healthy skin. Okay, let's dig a bit deeper. I'd like to talk about some targeted nutrients that play a significant role in skin health. Now, these are not the only nutrients, but I picked a couple of these because I thought that they're quite interesting how they tie in and some of the interactions that can happen with other commonly ingested pharmaceuticals as well. So let's talk about vitamins. Vitamin B2, or riboflavin, is in the tissue. It's converted to the coenzyme form. So when we have it, consume it in our food, and B group vitamins predominantly come from animal products. So then we break it down and it changes to flavin adenine dinucleotide, big long word, we call it FAD, yeah? Or another pathway it can go down is FMN, flavin mononucleotide. So FAD, FMN, okay? Now don't worry about what that converted form is per se, but I just want to let you know it's got to be able to break down. Stomach acid partially is involved with that, and so is your gut microbiome. But it's important that this conversion takes place. This conversion takes place, it starts breaking down, so all proteins start breaking down in the stomach, but it's completely dependent on liver, heart, and kidneys. Yeah? Who would have thought that the heart played a role in breaking down vitamin B2? But it does. So all of these organs come together and help break down and convert vitamin B2 into the converted form of riboflavin, and that then is absorbed and is important for our skin. So remember I mentioned bitter foods earlier, so radishes, rocket, mustard greens, watercress. Those foods help support healthy liver. So liver function is really important. Liver also plays a role in healthy bowel movements. So you can see everything affects everything else, and the bottom line is we get healthy skin from it. So this is where it's really important not just to work topically, but to work on your overall health parameters. Now, if you've got low bile salt production, in your digestion, that will compromise absorption. And by the way, yes, your urine will turn yellow when you take this supplement. So don't panic, it's not a problem. It's water soluble, so you do need to sprinkle it through your day. I usually recommend at least twice a day supplementation, but I also like to have it as a B group vitamin. But I just thought I'd pull out B2 because it's so important for the skin. Now, there also can be an interaction with B2 and that can with some pharmaceuticals. So anticholinergic drugs reduce the absorption of B2 specifically. Antidepressants interfere with the conversion of B2 to the active form of FAD. And any functional issues with organs will compromise that B2 absorption. So again, sometimes I hear people go, oh, I'm taking loads of B2, but they might be on an antidepressant. Their liver function or their kidney function may not be optimal and it may be compromising. So we may need to support those organs, or we may need a higher level. And again, talk to your practitioner about that. But B2 is really interesting. I'm a great fan of B2. I use it for a lot of things in my clinic. And it's not only important for skin, but eyes, nervous system. So think about how you feel with your emotions, your anxiety. So you can see that there's a tie in there of how you feel, which again, B2 deficiency may be affecting not only your skin, but it may be affecting your ability to absorb because of low stomach acid due to stress. B2 also plays a role in absorbing iron. So if you've got an iron deficiency and acne, you may find that it's a B2 deficiency that's the problem. Or it could be a liver issue. So speak to your nutritionist or your naturopath about the appropriate B group vitamin for you to fit with your individual biochemistry. We're just having a chat here about some of the roles of some of these nutrients. Let's talk about zinc. Great fan of zinc. I see this go awfully wrong with a lot of my patients when they present new. Sometimes they're taking way too much and it's driving copper down. So copper and zinc are both important for skin and having the right balance, but they have a seesaw relationship. Now I do, where possible, I like to test zinc and copper with both blood work and in tissue. And then that helps me decide on whether we need both supplemental and also to make sure that we're not over supplementing with zinc, but also if there's a deficiency, it helps guide us and target what to do. So both play a role in skin health and immunity. Yeah, the zinc also plays a role in balancing hormones and the hormone relationship to acne. Now, if you're a vegetarian, zinc can be problematic to absorb. It's actually hard to absorb. It is at low levels as well in vegetables, but it's hard to absorb because of the phytates in a lot of grains, seeds, and vegetables. So vegetarian diet can be an obstacle with absorption of zinc. So predominantly we get healthy levels of zinc from animal products. And this is mainly because not only is it at higher levels in animal proteins, but the animal proteins provide the cofactors, the peptides, that are released during digestion to be able to absorb adequate levels of zinc. So if you're vegetarian, you'll need to sprout grains to avoid the phytates and consider supplementation, but certainly I would get zinc and many other nutrients tested regularly as well to monitor. Remembering when you do test zinc, test copper at the same time because they have an inverse relationship, and you don't want to just supplement madly with loads of zinc because that can, in some cases, drive the copper too low. Copper and zinc both play a role in healthy skin, ligaments, and immunity. Let's jump to vitamin A. Now, you may have heard about vitamin A topically, vitamin A nutritionally. Again, vitamin A comes from organ meats, plays a very important role in ligaments, immunity, skin. It's predominantly easiest found in organ meats, can be supplemented. Now, it often gets confused as beta-carotene. I often have people say to me, oh, but I'm having lots of beta-carotene. Now, that's actually a different nutrient, and we need to be able to break beta-carotene down and convert it to vitamin A. And some people genetically have a problem with converting to vitamin A. Some people have low vitamin A receptors genetically. So we can test genes and see if that's playing a role, especially if they've got adequate sources of vitamin A in the diet. But of course, once we're ingesting it, we want to be able to break it down. We're dependent on strong stomach acid, the microbiome, And I know it's very boring hearing me say these things over and over again. But vitamin A is really important for collagen synthesis. Now, so is copper, zinc, and selenium. It's also important, vitamin A is important for epithelial cell differentiation. And it's a common deficiency. I see it frequently. And, we often think about vitamin A deficiency in third world countries. But again, the Western diet is very low in vitamin A. So again, think about those organ meats. Can you get them in? If you're vegetarian, you might want to consider other ways of supplementing with vitamin A. So much to talk about with this topic. I know I've already gone way over time, but let's just keep soldiering through. Silica. Silica is an interesting one. It commonly becomes deficient as we age, and it can be involved with skin issues, and in particular adult onset acne, because of this natural depleting as we age. So it's one of the first considerations I have when I see adult onset acne. So silica is naturally occurring in a lot of water tables, in particular Fiji water that you can buy by the bottle from your local supermarket, believe it or not. But it also comes in supplemental form, and silica is important for healthy hair, nails, skin, so many different things. So a really interesting nutrient. And remember, I'm not just talking about I'm just chosen a few nutrients to talk about today. Not all of the nutrients involved with skin and acne, but just a few of the key factors. So there's lots to play around with here, and these are certainly the highlights of it. Selenium, strong antioxidant that supports immunity. Yay! Also plays a role in collagen production, and also plays a role with estrogen to build collagen, and is quite often deficient in heavy metal cases. So this is where we see heavy metal cases where heavy metals are an antagonist to selenium, so selenium will be low, heavy metals high, and will develop skin issues, and in particular acne, because of low levels of selenium. But also selenium is very important for so many different things in our body, in particular immunity. So check in with your selenium levels. In particular, check your tissue selenium, and that can be done with a tissue mineral test. And it's something I commonly use with my patients in my clinic. Really easy, non-invasive, great thing to do for kids because, especially those that are afraid of blood tests. So selenium, very important nutrient, and it's an essential mineral. Essential fatty acids. So here's our good old omega-3. A lot of work omega-3s have to do. Reduce inflammation, balance hormones, support healthy brain function. There's a lot of stress on fatty acids. It's also very challenging for us to get it these days. Most of us aren't eating adequate levels of fatty acids. Some of that's due to the meat and fish farming. So if you can get your fish wild caught, you'll find it's got high levels of omega-3s. And same with your animal meats. If they're grazed and not, held in farmyards for too long, and they're eating naturally occurring grass and all that sort of thing, just cared for animals. That's really important. And of course, fatty acids can be easily depleted in vegetarian diets. But here's the inflammation aspect of that acne. Yeah, so we want to make sure that it is at optimal levels. Now, this can be tested these days, so you can do a test, speak to your naturopath about it. We do a lot of fatty acid testing for lots of reasons, not just acne in my clinic. And you can supplement. So most people are used to supplementing fish oil, and I usually suggest striving for fish oil supplementation that's a minimum of 800 milligrams of EPA. Sometimes I work up to about 2,000 milligrams of EPA, but it depends on the case. And you've got to have healthy stomach acid to be able to break that down, healthy bile production from the liver. So we might actually start with the liver in a treatment protocol make sure that your detox pathways are working well, build up that stomach acid and move forward in that way. So just consider things like that when, if you are on omega-3s and you find that it's not that helpful, it may be that your digestion needs a closer look. There are so many other nutrients, fat-soluble vitamins that reduce the pro-inflammatory cytokines. And that, when I'm talking about pro-inflammatory cytokines, think about when you've got a spot and then it just gets more inflamed and pussy and red. That's pro-inflammatory cytokines, and then it gets infected. That's the bacteria. So we talked about omega-3s. We also want to consider adequate intake of vitamin D, not just from the sun, and we need to be careful because some acne can be aggravated from sun. But think about intake of mushrooms or a supplement for vitamin D. Vitamin E needs to be at adequate level, vitamin A, and your microbiome probiotics need to be at a healthy level. Now, often I'll choose a lactobacilli probiotic when we've got a bad case of acne. If possible, if the patient allows, I will test the microbiome so we can get that working for us, because some of these bacteria pathogens also contribute to acne. So keep that in mind. There's lots of tools that we can check in there. Okay. What else? What haven't I talked about? I haven't talked about detoxification. Now, my first step with detoxification is having a nice, healthy bowel movement. Now, any of my patients that are listening to this video will be familiar with me talking about this is how much we need to evacuate. That diameter, about that volume, but we want it shaped like a lovely big Cavendish banana, and we want it healthy color. Yeah, so we want it the right color. So we want, looking at it upside down, this nice dark, say 70% mint chocolate color. Yeah, but yes, bowel movements do come in all these unhealthy colors. So we need to address that. And of course, the shape of it. And this is reliant on fiber, healthy hydration, but it's always our first step. If you're not detoxifying appropriately, it means that the stomach acid isn't strong enough, not giving the right signals, the beneficial bacteria aren't in balance, and of course, our liver isn't working well. So we always want to start there. So what can we do about liver health? We want to just make sure it's supported, and diet, bitter foods, healthy hydration, adequate fiber all help support liver function. Now, even the liver being mildly sluggish can aggravate acne or any sort of skin issues. B group vitamins are important for healthy liver function, so you can see everything connects. All these dots connect. Now, many people consume a lot of St. Mary's thistle or silymarin for liver support. Now, I do urge you to be cautious and seek a herbalist for an appropriate recommendation, because if you're one of those people with deficiency in B2 and deficiency in iron, and you're seeking and using silymarin, St. Mary's thistle, you might be chelating your iron and making it even more problematic. So we've got a wide range of tools for supporting liver. Generally, if you can't use silymarin, you might want to consider NAC. That might be a problem if you've got sulfur sensitivity, but we're not short on tools for supporting liver. So do speak to your practitioner about appropriate liver support for you. Liver support is not just limited to one supplement, one nutrient. It's also to do with stress, hydration, adequate bowel movements, exercise, so much. Yeah, so do check in with your natural medicine practitioner. But we've talked about adequate elimination, bitter foods, B group vitamins. Yeah, all of these are important baselines. So let's talk about some topicals. Now, I did touch on the juice of sauerkraut. We do know that some forms of salicylic acid can be helpful in reducing sebum. They can come from natural herbs. You can also get commercial products that include that. But you're also seeking something that's got an anti-inflammatory response. But do check in and first step and make sure that whatever you're using topically is not too toxic for you. And what we want are things that handle bacteria. I like to think of things that are natural, like tea tree oil. Now, you don't want to use that straight. You might include a few drops with some other topical nutrient or moisturizer, or you might want to use it in conjunction with something like aloe vera gel to reduce inflammation. I quite often create a bespoke herbal cream that might include something like calendula, pokeroot, golden seal, nigella. So I make that up specifically for my patients when appropriate. But there's also a lot that you can find commercially on shelves. And even niacinamide cream can be really helpful. I've even seen niacinamide in a supermarket moisturizer at quite high level. And so be mindful when you're looking at some of these labels, and do read the labels. Sometimes you can find something that's quite helpful depending on your level of acne infection and what to do. Okay, so there's a lot that can be done. You can consider light therapy, narrowband blue and red light therapy, intense pulsed light can be helpful, photodynamic therapy. These are all quite well known in reducing acne and other skin issues as well. So there's no real acne diet. It's really about reducing commercial foods, reducing sugar, getting the foods target to support and manage the glycemic index, and making sure you're including foods to support healthy liver function, healthy elimination, and anti-inflammatory. So consider anti-inflammatory foods and foods that are a source of zinc, vitamin A, and we've touched on some of those. So lots of vegetables. I know a lot of my patients get bored with me talking about that. A lot of vegetables with a wide variety of types of fibers, good healthy proteins with a predominance of fish, and think fatty fish. And choose a broad spectrum of foods, reducing refined carbohydrates, sugary commercial foods, reducing trans fats, so have a good read of anything commercial that might be in your pantry. And we know that milk consumption in itself can be a problem for acne, so maybe consider reducing or eliminating milk short term, because these can be triggers. So what to ingest? So I always consider vitamin A, but I only like my patients to consume vitamin A under supervision. So do visit your naturopath to get both the vitamin A prescribed, supplied, and monitored. Vitamin A at high dose is not appropriate, for instance, when you're seeking conception or in pregnancy. So be cautious there. And also we need to be careful about autoimmune conditions. Some of these immune supporting nutrients are great for acne, but might aggravate autoimmune conditions if you're pro-autoimmune or have any antibodies at the moment. The same with vitamin D, which comes in supplementation as well. We need to be careful with that. Zinc, I've talked about. We need to establish what your zinc and copper levels are. Selenium, I was like, if that's low, I'm wanting to check on your heavy metals, make sure we don't have that as part of your case. I touched on B2 and B group vitamins, but B6 also plays a role in both digestion and can be helpful for acne. Vitamin C also helpful for detoxing. It's a great antioxidant, as is vitamin E. And often I use herbal medicine, ingesting herbal medicine to help regulate hormones, regulate lymphatic drainage, antibacterial, all sorts of things. And often I'll use in acne cases, and I'm not prescribing it for you, but often I will use a combination of chaste tree, blue flag, golden seal, nigella. They're not all appropriate for everybody, but sometimes I'll consider these. But again, I usually make herbal medicine as a bespoke medicine after taking a full case. Most people don't recognize the impact of stress in acne. A hormone called CRH can be increased by stress, and CRH is present in sebaceous glands. An increase in CRH really can make just normal teenage acne really chronic and quite high level. So stress exacerbated acne needs strong stress management. All acne heals slower than in a person that's under stress. So check in with your stress levels. There's lots of tools to manage stress. Zinc plays a role in stress management and may be part of that. But again, we can prescribe herbal medicine to improve, and targeted nutritionals that improve your stress resilience. We need to look at what tools you're using for stress management. Are they adequate? And what else might need to be adjusted in your life to make sure that's not what's aggravating your acne. So in summary, we need to reduce stress, balance hormones, have healthy evacuation, adjust any deficiencies that may be contributing, manage and improve glycemic control with diet, targeted nutrients and herbal medicine, and look at relaxing. Big point. So, that's the big take-home message. So, a lot we've covered today. I could bang on about it forever. There's a lot we didn't cover today, but I hope this gives you a little bit of an idea of how complex and highly individualized some of these experiences or diagnoses are, such as acne. So do seek out a practitioner. I'm available for treatment. I don't treat just one thing. I treat the person, so keep that in mind if you approach me for treatment. I'm not just going to be treating acne. I'll be exploring a lot that we talked about today and looking at overall wellness. So my details will be in the comments, and you can check in on the Gut Healing Community page about my contact details as well. My website is thebodyguard.com.au. You can check in for an short intro chat to see if you'd like to work together, or follow me on Instagram, _TheBodyguard. And please let me know whether you're listening to the recording, whether you've been listening to me live, in the comments below. I'll be around over today, tomorrow, off and on. Tag me if you want any of my input and involvement. Don't hesitate to ask any questions. As I say, acne treatment is really important to me. I really think that left untreated can lead to some real anxiety issues and negatively impact on our overall wellness. So stay well. Look forward to speaking to you soon. Bye.